Madonna, also known as the Queen of Pop, is an icon that everyone knows, regardless of whether or not you like her music. She's been in the game for so long that it's no surprise that a Hollywood veteran would change and adapt her looks throughout the years. Her style has evolved drastically and changes as Madonna moves through different stages in her life. On top of that, she has also been a lot more recently involved in plastic surgery to change her physical looks as well to continue to appear young despite her age. Today we're going to get into how Madonna's looks have changed over the years, both style-wise and surgery-wise. 1970s. Taken from photos in her yearbook, it appears that Madonna went through high school with thinly plucked eyebrows and natural-looking makeup. Her hair is also its natural color, which was a dirty blonde kind of brunette. In 1978, she took some acting headshots where she was again sporting minimal makeup yet with crimped hair. Her eyes have always been Bette Davis-esque, where they are striking and sharp. Then, as Madonna's fame starts to soar, her style begins pivoting from natural and relatively minimal to an edgier, more punky look. In 1979, she chopped her hair off and sported a slick pixie cut. Now living in Manhattan, she rocked heavy lipstick and artfully applied shadows to enunciate her eyes. Once we entered the 1980s, Madonna has become a mega superstar. She introduced the world to the Manhattan club scene. She released her self-titled debut album in this decade and began cultivating an edgy, fun aesthetic. She over-glamorized with poppy colors in her makeup and clothing. She was quintessential 80s. At this point, she also hasn't gotten any plastic surgery done because she's so young. I doubt she would really feel the need to, especially because of how naturally beautiful she is. She became known for her bright red lipstick and smoky eye, which is now considered a classic look in part due to Madonna's consistent use of it. In 1985, she also did the infamous Like a Virgin and would embody that role for quite some time. She became the soiled virgin during this era, a woman in a wedding dress with blood pouring out of her abdomen. Her looks during the 80s are more synonymous with how people view Madonna as a whole during her height. Her look was purely DIY and almost eclectic, with each individual accessory being a loud statement piece on its own. That being said, Madonna did have some cosmetic surgery during this time, but it was done to her teeth. She got a few crowns in her teeth and evened them out to seem more appealing. As we enter more into the 1990s and Madonna exits the youth and natural beauty she had been so accustomed to, we start to see much less of a fashion shift and much more of a physical form shift. She sticks to her bold lipstick and smoky eye and often chooses eclectic outfits over something more traditional. But we also start to notice lip fillers, and her face begins to shift in a way that seems like an attempt to fight the natural progress of age. In the late 90s too, it became apparent that Madonna started on a Botox regime to keep her cheeks full and prevent sagging. Although none of this is confirmed, it's hard not to see. When she smiles, there's very little expression lines as opposed to her younger self, who showcases her smile with lines on the sides of her lips. Her eyes also look more frozen and less expressive. As we enter into the 2000s, we see both a massive style shift and a physical form shift as well. Her style becomes much more classic. She begins wearing dark, sleek outfits and minimal makeup. It almost appears to be an ode to her younger self as she transitions into a more middle-aged woman and away from her youthful exuberance in the 80s fashion and club scene. In 2003 specifically, it also looks like she got her first facelift. This is different from the usual Botox in the sense that it's not really injections. Rather, Madonna would have had surgically, physically gotten her face lifted. The surgery is super painful and hard to do, but now Madonna's entire look has changed, with not a wrinkle on her forehead and wrinkles practically gone everywhere else. The widening of the temple to move back her hairline, coupled with wrinkling at the ears, point to the scar along her hairline. The public is starting to catch on now too, as now there's tons of tabloids about Madonna's face and how she looks so different from how she looked before. We see an eyelid surgery that got rid of the sagging on her eye folds and reduced puffiness under her eyes. Also during this time, we see the first non-subtle facial surgery. Her cheeks are noticeably much more pronounced in a way that only a cheek implant could produce. Her cheek hollows are also very pronounced. Because Madonna has always been extremely lean and muscular, it would make sense that she would attempt to get implants, seeing as those who have much leaner frames tend to age faster because there's less fat behind the skin, so it appears less full. As time goes on though, sadly her face becomes more and more full. It starts to change the features that people see most. Before, Madonna's eyes were the star of the show. Her eyes are stunning. But as the fillers and fat transplants become more common, we start to see that her cheeks and her skin become more and more attention-grabbing. It happens a lot with dermal fillers. If people continue to use dermal fillers, as they get older they just put more on top of the old fillers, and that can lead to a larger looking face. In the 2010s we see a lot more of the same stuff. Although she's aged 10 years, you barely see it as she continues with the dermals and the facelifts. That being said, considering she's in her 50s around this time, I think she looks really good. Obviously, and here's a little rant incoming, we need to take into account that it is a surgically enhanced look, and no person at this age should expect to look like this without modifying their body in some way. I don't really want to take the angle of shaming someone for getting surgery to enhance how they look, because we've all got insecurities, and I can't imagine being in a spotlight where the way you look is such a large aspect of your career and how you're perceived by millions of people. But at the same time, we also want to tell normal people that this look is not possible naturally. It is not genetics. Of course she looks great, but don't hate yourself if you don't look like her. Anyway, sorry about that, but I do feel like being transparent on this angle here is a bit necessary to continue the video as ethically as possible. Now, in 2019, we start to see Madonna's appearance make headlines again. This time for her butt. Getting a Brazilian butt lift, Madonna is now sporting a much more voluptuous back end. Like I said, her natural figure is extremely lean and athletic, so it would be near impossible for her to attain a larger butt that is more popular these days. But Madonna definitely started to sport the stereotypical BBL look that we see on people like Kim Kardashian and Kylie Jenner. She's got very thin thighs and a perfectly rounded front figure in her thighs with no hip dips in sight. Almost every woman has natural hip dips, so it becomes really obvious when someone has a big butt and no dips, where the muscle in the thigh supports the butt. Madonna definitely went for a more trendy look this time, which honestly I think is closer to her brand. As the decades progress, we see her style become extremely trendy. She embodies each decade that she dominates with music. But as her music production slows, she continues to follow the trends of the decade, with a BBL kind of personifying this. And now in the current decade of the 2020s, we see a lot more fat transfers to her face from other parts of her body. Her face is getting a lot puffier, which I guess is a way to attain a fuller looking face, which is something she battles, as her genetics don't hold fat in a way that it would for other people who gain weight easier. It seems she also updated her cheek implants because her cheeks have become more pronounced than ever, but this time without the accompanying hollowness below her cheeks. With the combination of a fat transplant and cheek implants, her face looks extremely full and almost unnaturally youthful. She starts to look a bit otherworldly because after a certain point, and I mean she's in her 60s now, you can't really fight age and time. Her lips have also become a lot more exaggerated around this time, with a much more noticeable lip filler dominating her face. And now in early April 2022, Madonna posted a TikTok that shocked fans and viewers. The video's weird. It's just her getting close to the camera and then far away from the camera. But it's also weird in the way that her face looks insanely different. In my personal opinion, it looked like she took the video hot off the presses of the surgery table. Her face looks puffy, but in a swollen way, and likely we'll see her look much more normal as the swelling reduces in the future. Her eyes look almost completely closed and swollen, so it looks like she got more Botox on her forehead and cheeks, which would puff up the cheeks and make her eyes look really small. Jennifer Coolidge, one of my favorite actors and comedians, has this look as well due to consistent Botox and cheek implants. A lot of fans are a little sad about Madonna's constantly changing look. One person commented on the TikTok, quote, "I've loved Madonna since I was little. Huge fan, love her, but this is a hard pass. What has she done to herself?" I think it's a hard line to tread as someone gets older. I can't imagine how dissociative one must feel to continue shifting their face to seemingly desperately reverse aging. After some time, and we're starting to see it much more now, it just looks unnatural. She's already heavily photoshops her photos on social media, and I think it all obviously points to a very intense self-esteem issue. I just hope she finds the help she needs and maybe finds the courage to embrace her natural beauty a bit more. Anyway guys, that's all I've got for today. I've been your host Sierra. Thanks for watching. See you next time.